This was one of the hardest lessons that I had to learn in business and in life, and it all came at the cost of not trusting God and trusting others before me. I once thought that relying on what people told me came at a cost because I depended on their transparency instead of God's. I would let other people's word dictate how I should move, instead of understanding that God has blessed me with the gifts and understanding, carve and create my own path. And this came at the cost of time, effort, and lack of knowledge. I have always been a very entrepreneurial sort of minded individual, and I would tend to see the best in a lot of people, which is a really good virtue that I believe that God has blessed me with. However, in leaning into this understanding in a very deep way, I was very easily manipulated. I was very easily taken advantage of, and throughout that whole process, I didn't really understand and know myself as an individual. It led me to make a lot of decisions based on what people thought and based on what they needed, rather than introspectively understanding that what I need is also as important or even more valuable than what they had. I had initially thought that if I believed and aligned myself with the right people, everything else would sort of fall into place. But time and time again, I just let myself down. Deals would fall through, deadlines were eventually missed, and people I thought I could count on didn't show up when times mattered. It was frustrating, exhausting, and honestly, it made me question if I was even on the right path. However, one day, I was really at a breaking point after being let down so many times, beaten emotionally to the point where I didn't know where to go. I sat there and I prayed to God. I said, God, why doesn't this work? Why do I keep hitting a dead end? And that's when things actually clicked. I was putting more trust in human promises than in God's greater plan. As I grew with God, a lot of things sort of made sense once I started to read more of the Bible, and I started to value myself and the things that I brought to the table more. I had actually randomly opened up to Proverbs 3 verse 5 to 6, which basically says to trust in the Lord with all your heart and not on your own understanding. And in all your ways submit to Him, and He will make our path straight. That's when things actually made sense for me, because I was doing the complete opposite of what the Bible and of what God actually wanted me to do. God actually reminded me that I had all the tools that I needed and all the talents to move forward. I just needed to step out into faith and trust Him to guide me forward. So I stopped waiting on other people. I stopped relying on building partnerships and started to use the gifts and the understandings that I had already had, but for myself, and invoking all that time and energy onto my projects and onto the things that I enjoyed, such as law, such as my entrepreneurial ways of thinking, such as the businesses that I sought to bring forward but were being neglected from the sole fact that I trusted other people instead of myself. I essentially focused on a vision and allowed God to lead the way, and I felt a lot more clarity and a lot more peace in allowing God to guide every step of the way through my studies in my law career, and through starting this channel here, and through starting really understand and carry the promises that God has laid out for me in a very practical and mellow way, without getting into my head or without doubting the things that I already knew. And you know what? The returns were better than I had ever imagined. This isn't to actually say that we don't need partnerships, collaborations. They're a very important part of building things, but we can't place our hope and our trust in that solely and expect those things to fall into place. Do not dismiss the things that matter to you for somebody else's. Always put your thoughts and your ideas in combination with what other people are trying to propose, and if things don't make sense, don't mix them, and don't try to mix them, because God will eventually separate you and will lead you to realize these things. See, people can ultimately fail, but God's promises can never fail. See, when I shifted my trust into God's word, I felt a sense of deeper maturity, and I was able to invoke all that energy into propelling my career forward that I had initially built. And I found that a lot of the ideas that I doubted were really portrayed and shine through when I allowed myself and that space to grow and to flesh these things out. So one thing that I would say, especially for all the young people that are in a situation kind of like mine is to sort of stop waiting for other people to fix the issues that you already know, or stop waiting for these people to give you the value proposition that you expect would return something greater. Because a lot of these value propositions ultimately don't line up, or ultimately don't make sense in your heart. To really be able to differentiate what is of your value in a genuine and honest way, does this make more sense for you, or is this something that the other individual is seeking? And really have these principles and values dialed in before getting into anything. And let me remind you of one simple thing to make all this make sense and wrap this up. God has already equipped you with what you need to take that next step. Take Him, take action, and watch how He works within your life. I wouldn't be really sitting here if it wasn't for the fact that I'm allowing God to sort of shape who I am and allow these vulnerabilities and these stories of mine to shine through the ways that I want to portray my own personal struggles with how they've shaped me at such a young age. Let's stop waiting for the world's approval and allow God's approval to take charge and to take action. Thank you guys for watching my first short, long form type of style content here. I look forward to creating more story times. Let me know in the comments if you've ever been placed in a situation that is like mine, or are currently experiencing something that is similar to what I'm going through, and if this has allowed or helped you shed some light as to where and how to direct the next steps going forward. The gifts that God has given you are more than enough. He knows every hair on your head, doubt that you have, the shape of your heart. Grab that Bible, boys and girls.